Weight training is a common type of strength training for developing the strength and size of skeletal muscles. It uses the weight force of gravity to oppose the force generated by muscle through concentric or eccentric contraction. Weight training uses a variety of specialized equipment to target specific muscle groups and types of movement. Sports where strength training is central are bodybuilding, weightlifting, powerlifting, and strongman, Highland Games, shot put, discus throw, and javelin throw. Many other sports use strength training as part of their training regimen, notably, mixed martial arts, tennis, American football, wrestling, rugby football, track and field, rowing, lacrosse, basketball, baseball and hockey. Strength training for other sports and physical activities is becoming increasingly popular. Weight training versus other types of exercise. Strength training is an inclusive term that describes all exercises devoted toward increasing physical strength. Endurance training is associated with aerobic exercise, while flexibility training is associated with stretching exercise like yoga or Pilates. Weight training is often used as a synonym for strength training, but is actually a specific type within the more inclusive category. Contrary to popular belief, weight training can be beneficial for both men and women. Effective weight training develops lean muscle, increasing your resting metabolic rate and helping your body burn fat. History. The genealogy of lifting can be traced back to the beginning of recorded history, where humanity's fascination with physical abilities can be found. Among numerous ancient writings, progressive resistance training dates back at least to ancient Greece, when legend has it that wrestler Milo of Croton trained by carrying a newborn calf on his back every day until it was fully grown. Another Greek, the physician Galen, described strength training exercises using the altera in the 2nd century. Ancient Greek sculptures also depict lifting feats. The weights were generally stones, but later gave way to dumbbells. The dumbbell was joined by the barbell in the later half of the 19th century. Early barbells had hollow globes that could be filled with sand or lead shot, but by the end of the century these were replaced by the plate-loading barbell commonly used today. Another early device was the Indian club, which came from ancient Persia where it was called the mules. It subsequently became popular during the 19th century, and has recently made a comeback in the form of the clubball. The 1960s saw the gradual introduction of exercise machines into the still rare strength training gyms of the time. Weight training became increasingly popular in the 1970s, following the release of the bodybuilding movie Pumping Iron, and the subsequent popularity of Arnold Schwarzenegger. Since the late 1990s, increasing numbers of women have taken up weight training. Influenced by programs like Body for Life, currently nearly 1 in 5 U.S. women engage in weight training on a regular basis. Basic principles. The basic principles of weight training are essentially identical to those of strength training, and involve a manipulation of the number of repetitions, sets, tempo, exercise types, and weight moved to cause desired increases in strength, endurance, and size. The specific combinations of reps, sets, exercises, and weights depends on the aims of the individual performing the exercise. Sets with fewer reps can be performed with heavier weights, as well as sets with higher reps with lighter weights. In addition to the basic principles of strength training, a further consideration added by weight training is the equipment used. Types of equipment include barbells, dumbbells, pulleys and stacks in the form of weight machines, and the body's own weight in the case of chin-ups and push-ups. Different types of weights will give different types of resistance, and often the same absolute weight can have different relative weights depending on the type of equipment used. For example, lifting 10 kilograms using a dumbbell sometimes requires more force than moving 10 kilograms on a weight stack if certain pulley arrangements are used. In other cases, the weight stack may require more force than the equivalent dumbbell weight due to additional torque or resistance in the machine. Additionally, although they may display the same weight stack, Different machines may be heavier or lighter depending on the number of pulleys and their arrangements. Weight training also requires the use of good form, performing the movements with the appropriate muscle group, and not transferring the weight to different body parts in order to move greater weight. Failure to use good form during a training set can result in injury or a failure to meet training goals, since the desired muscle group is not challenged sufficiently. The threshold of overload is never reached and the muscle does not gain in strength. At a particularly advanced level, however, cheating can be used to break through strength plateaus and encourage neurological and muscular adaptation. Comparison to other types of strength training. The benefits of weight training overall are comparable to most other types of strength training. Increase muscle, tendon and ligament strength, bone density, flexibility, tone, metabolic rate, and postural support. There are benefits and limitations to weight training as compared to other types of strength training. Jumping and rotation with a barbell on shoulders, shown on the right animation, is one of the illustrations. Weight training versus isometric training. Isometric exercise provides a maximum amount of resistance based on the force output of the muscle, or muscles pitted against one another. This maximum force maximally strengthens the muscles over all of the joint angles at which the isometric exercise occurs. By comparison, weight training also strengthens the muscle throughout the range of motion the joint is trained in, but only maximally at one angle, causing a lesser increase in physical strength at other angles from the initial through terminating joint angle as compared with isometric exercise. In addition, the risk of injury from weights used in weight training is greater than with isometric exercise, and the risk of asymmetric training is also greater than with isometric exercise of identical opposing muscles. Weight training and bodybuilding. Although weight training is similar to bodybuilding, they have different objectives. Bodybuilders use weight training to develop their muscles for size, shape, and symmetry regardless of any increase in strength for competition in bodybuilding contests. They train to maximize their muscular size and develop extremely low levels of body fat. In contrast, many weight trainers train to improve their strength and anaerobic endurance while not giving special attention to reducing body fat far below normal. The bodybuilding community has been the source of many of weight training's principles, techniques, vocabulary, and customs. Weight training does allow tremendous flexibility in exercises and weights which can allow bodybuilders to target specific muscles and muscle groups, as well as attain specific goals. Not all bodybuilding is undertaken to compete in bodybuilding contests and, in fact, the vast majority of bodybuilders never compete, but bodybuild for their own personal reasons. Safety. Weight training is a safe form of exercise when the movements are controlled and carefully defined. However, as with any form of exercise, improper execution and the failure to take appropriate precautions can result in injury. Maintaining proper form. When the exercise becomes difficult towards the end of a set, there is a temptation to cheat, i.e., to use poor form to recruit other muscle groups to assist the effort. This may shift the effort to weaker muscles that cannot handle the weight. For example, the squat and the deadlift are used to exercise the largest muscles in the body, the leg and buttock muscles, so they require substantial weight. Beginners are tempted to round their back while performing these exercises. The relaxation of the spinal erectors, which allows the lower back to round, can cause shearing in the vertebrae of the lumbar spine, potentially damaging the spinal discs. Stretching and warm-up. Weight trainers commonly spend 5 to 20 minutes warming up their muscles before starting a workout. It is common to stretch the entire body to increase overall flexibility. However, many people stretch just the area being worked that day. The main reason for warming up is injury prevention. Warming up increases blood flow and flexibility, which lessens the chance of a muscle pull or joint pain. Warm-up sets are also important. For example, the same lifter working on his chest would also be advised to complete at least 2 warm-up sets prior to hitting his core tonnage. Core tonnage refers to the heavier lifts that actually strain your muscles. For example, if the lifter's main sets were at 205 pounds, 225 pounds and 235 pounds on the bench, then a warm-up of 5 reps of 135 and 5 reps of 185 would be advisable. When properly warmed up, the lifter will then have more strength and stamina since the blood has begun to flow to the muscle groups. Breathing shallowly or holding one's breath while working out limits the oxygen supply to the muscles and the brain, decreasing performance and, under extreme stress, risking a blackout or a stroke by aneurysm. Most trainers advise weight trainees to consciously exhale on effort, and to inhale when lowering the weight. This technique ensures that the trainee breathes through the most difficult part of the exercise, where one would reflexively hold one's breath. However, biomechanics and kinesiology expert Stuart McGill indicates that spine stabilization is assured by the ability to co-contract the abdominal wall, independently of any lung ventilation patterns. Good stabilizers maintain the critical symmetrical muscle stiffness. Poor stabilizers allow abdominal contraction levels to cycle with breathing at critical moments when stability is required. Grooving muscular activation patterns so that a particular direction in lung airflow is entrained to a particular part of any exertion is not helpful. This would be of little carryover value to other activities. In fact, it would be counterproductive. Other coaches advise trainees to perform the Valsalva maneuver during exercises which place a load on the spine, since the risk of a stroke by aneurysm is astronomically lower than the risk of an orthopedic injury caused by inadequate rigidity of the torso. Stuart McGill adds that the mechanism of building high levels of intra-abdominal pressure, produced by breath holding using the Valsalva maneuver, to ensure spine stiffness and stability during these extraordinary demands, should be considered only for extreme weightlifting challenges, not for rehabilitation exercise. If an athlete relies on thirst alone for when and how much to drink, it may lead to them becoming dehydrated. This is particularly true in hot environments, or for those older than 65. Some athletic trainers advise athletes to drink about 7 imperial fluid ounces every 15 minutes while exercising, and about 80 imperial fluid ounces throughout the day. However, a much more accurate determination of how much fluid is necessary can be made by performing appropriate weight measurements before and after a typical exercise session, to determine how much fluid is lost during the workout. The greatest source of fluid loss during exercise is through perspiration, but as long as your fluid intake is roughly equivalent to your rate of perspiration, hydration levels will be maintained. Under most circumstances, sports drinks do not offer a physiological benefit over water during weight training. However, high-intensity exercise for a continuous duration of at least 1 hour may require the replenishment of electrolytes which a sports drink may provide. Some may maintain that energy drinks, such as Red Bull that contain caffeine, improve performance in weight training and other physical exercise. But in fact, these energy drinks can cause dehydration, tremors, heat stroke, and heart attack when consumed in excess. Sports drinks that contain simple carbohydrates and water do not cause ill effects, but are most likely unnecessary for the average trainee. Insufficient hydration may cause lethargy, soreness or muscle cramps. The urine of well-hydrated persons should be nearly colorless, while an intense yellow color is normally a sign of insufficient hydration. Avoiding pain in exercise should be halted if marked or sudden pain is felt, to prevent further injury. However, not all discomfort indicates injury. Weight training exercises are brief but very intense, and many people are unaccustomed to this level of effort. The expression, "no pain, no gain," refers to working through the discomfort expected from such vigorous effort. rather than to willfully ignore extreme pain, which may indicate serious soft tissue injuries. Discomfort can arise from other factors. Individuals who perform large numbers of repetitions, sets, and exercises for each muscle group may experience a burning sensation in their muscles. These individuals may also experience a swelling sensation in their muscles from increased blood flow. True muscle fatigue is experienced as a marked and uncontrollable loss of strength in a muscle, arising from the nervous system rather than from the muscle fibers themselves. Extreme neural fatigue can be experienced as temporary muscle failure. Some weight training programs, such as metabolic resistance training, actively seek temporary muscle failure. Evidence to support this type of training is mixed at best. Beginners are advised to build up slowly to a weight training program, and trained individuals may have some muscles that are comparatively stronger than others. An injury can result if, in a particular exercise, the primary muscle is stronger than its stabilizing muscles. Building up slowly allows muscles time to develop appropriate strengths relative to each other. This can also help to minimize delayed onset muscle soreness. A sudden start to an intense program can cause significant muscular soreness. Unexercised muscles contain cross-linkages that are torn during intense exercise. Other precautions: anyone beginning an intensive physical training program is typically advised to consult a physician, because of possible undetected heart or other conditions for which such activity is contraindicated. Exercises like the bench press or the squat, in which a failed lift can potentially result in the lifter becoming trapped under the weight, are normally performed inside a power rack or in the presence of one or more spotters, who can safely re-rack the barbell if the weight trainer is unable to do so. Equipment. Weight training usually requires different types of equipment, most commonly dumbbells, barbells, and weight machines. Various combinations of specific exercises, machines, dumbbells, and barbells allow trainees to exercise body parts in numerous ways. Other types of equipment include lifting straps, which allow more weight to be lifted by transferring the load to the wrists and avoiding limitations in forearm muscles and grip strength. Weightlifting belts, which are meant to brace the core through intra-abdominal pressure. Controversy exists regarding the safety of these devices, and the proper use is often misunderstood. Weighted clothing, bags of sand, lead shot, or other materials that are strapped to wrists, ankles, torso or other body parts to increase the amount of work required by muscles. Gloves can improve grip, prevent the formation of calluses on the hands, relieve pressure on the wrists, and provide support. Chalk, which dries out sweaty hands, improving grip. Wrist and knee wraps. Shoes, which have a flat, rigid sole to provide a sturdy base of support, and may feature a raised heel of varying height to accommodate a lifter's biomechanics for more efficient squats, deadlifts, overhead presses, and Olympic lifts.